So, welcome to Learn to Meditate. My name is Ashley Dinges, and I'm one of the co founders of the Weekly Dharma Gathering platform, where we host weekly live talks on Wednesday night with all kinds of teachers from various backgrounds and different types of practices, different talk topics. And we decided that given everything that's going on in the world right now, we really wanted to make some more offerings available, and particularly offerings that were free and accessible to everyone, especially people who might be new to meditation, um, those who are isolated, who are in their homes, and maybe don't have access to other resources, and or perhaps people who are just learning how to meditate for the first time. There's no better time to start, really. So, uh, meditating in a crisis is totally a wonderful thing to do. And particularly for me, I felt like uh, I was getting a lot of questions from friends. I've noticed that there are a lot of different health recommendations, like CDC recommendations and things that are specifically kind of recommending people to practice meditation, which is wonderful and great. And I think it's incredible that mental health and our sort of mental state is being given its own weight, just alongside keeping our physical bodies healthy. So this is a very stressful time uh, for a lot of people, and it could be stressful in different ways for you. Um, Maybe you are an introvert and you like being home. You could be an extrovert like me and be having a very hard time not being around the energy of people. Many of us who live in small New York apartments might feel claustrophobic. And then also just being in a time of tremendous uncertainty in terms of our personal finances, our health, the health of our families and our loved ones, and just sort of not knowing what to do necessarily, or having a sense of helplessness. So um, I'm a meditation teacher in a Tibetan Buddhist lineage, the Shambhala lineage. And in that lineage, our, I would say, foundational practice is called shamatha, or calm abiding meditation. And that style of meditation is where we use our body breathing as the point of focus. So we're using that to kind of anchor our awareness and our attention during the practice of meditation. And meditation has a lot of benefits. If you read magazines and articles, you'll hear all kinds of different um, benefits being touted. I think that the biggest benefit to meditation practice is the ability to work with becoming more familiar with yourself. And it's kind of, at first, seems a little bit like, well, how does concentrating on my breathing have anything to do with self-awareness or familiarization with myself and my patterns and habits? But what ends up happening is that as we go through this process of constantly bringing our attention to our breathing, inevitably what happens is that we get distracted and pulled away, and we don't do that. We don't actually put our attention on our breath for long periods of time, sometimes, if you're especially in an interesting or fun daydream. Um, and when we realize that we've kind of gone away from the breathing practice, we just notice it and bring the attention back. So when we do a breath-based practice, we're using the breath as the point of our awareness and what we're returning back to when we feel distracted or pulled away. There are many different types of meditation that you can do. You can do mantra meditation or visualization practices as well. But in my tradition, this is kind of the fundamental practice that we start with. And I really like it because as somebody who was not actually, I learned that I was not very connected to my body when I started doing this practice. I was very out of touch with how my body felt, what my experience was of being in my body. And the focusing on the breathing can also help with that too. It kind of grounds us into our physical body, connects us with the earth, sort of slows down the nervous system. So this particular style of practice can be helpful if you're going through a period of feeling overwhelmed, or also feeling like you have anxiety or stress. this is a good practice to do. So even if you've been practicing a very long time, going back to these basic breath-based practices can be extremely helpful. And I also say, I said this on Saturday in my session too, so Alyssa heard this already, but this is also a really nice thing to be able to do when you're out. So if you're, for example, not sitting on a cushion and not like doing a formal practice, you can always bring your attention to the body breathing and just having a sense of the feeling of your breathing and focusing on your breathing, especially if you're in a difficult situation, stressed out, maybe high intensity or a conflict situation as well. So you don't have to always be like, I'm sitting on the meditation cushion, I'm doing the practice. You can always have a sense of bringing your awareness to your breathing. So that is what we'll do. And I will guide us through one period of sitting. So we'll start and I will talk you through the whole process. Then we'll do a very short, totally silent sit together. And then I'll ring the gong and we'll have a break. You can stretch and move around. You can also ask me questions at that point. And then we'll go back and do one more sit together, that time without any guidance. And then we'll conclude from there. So that's it. If you have any questions now or later, you're welcome to put them into the chat. The easiest thing to do if you're new to meditation is just follow along and listen to the instructions. Do the best that you can. You really can't mess up. There's no right or wrong. It's just your experience. So, and then we'll have time for a little bit of Q&A after we sit together for a little bit. So that's what we'll do. If anyone has questions now, though, feel free to just pop them in the chat, or you can even come on camera. Okay. So the most important thing when you're starting to meditate is making sure that you spend some time setting up your space and working with your posture and your physical body in meditation posture. This will help you. The more time that you spend on this and the more time that you revisit this as you continue meditation practice, the easier it will be for you to sit for longer periods, especially if you have pain in the body. So I'm going to talk us through sitting meditation. I am seated on a cushion. If you're in a chair, you can just listen to my instruction and everything from the waist down, you just visualize yourself in a chair. What that would be for you sitting in a chair. If you are in a chair and your feet don't touch the floor, something you can do is to just put a cushion under your feet so that they rest on top of the cushion. And this is good if you're short like me. If you are seated on the floor, you basically just want to be on a cushion that supports your hips above, raises your hips up above your knees. So your hips should just be even the slightest bit, maybe in half an inch or an inch higher than your knees, and that will help you help your feet and your legs not fall asleep. So the basic posture is that we start by putting our weight in the center of whatever we're sitting on. So if that's a chair or a cushion, you just want to feel like you're right in the center of it. You're not tilted forward or kind of arching back. You should feel, and sometimes if you move your spine a little bit like I'm doing, you will find a spot that feels like it's your center of gravity coming up from the pelvis. So your spine should feel like it's just rising straight up from your pelvis. It should feel, nothing should feel forced. So if something feels forced, please try moving around, get comfortable. So legs are crossed or just straight onto the floor if you're sitting in a chair, spine kind of straight but also relaxed, coming up out of the pelvis. Your shoulders should generally be back and down. What you don't want to do is try to force your posture. So don't try to like sit with really good posture. That your back will get very uncomfortable. And also just make sure that you're not rounding down in your spine. So for me, I tend to have a little bit more rounding so that I'm not forcing back. So I prefer to be a little slouchy versus looking perfectly straight. And then your head should just be balancing at the top of your spine. It should feel very natural and kind of loose, almost just like a ball sitting on the top of kind of a point. The best thing to do is to look straight forward and then just tuck your chin about an inch, and you can let your gaze fall in front of you on the floor. And I'll talk a little bit more about the gaze in just a moment, but your arms can rest on top of your thighs. And sometimes we have a tendency to go too far forward or pull back. And the easiest way to find the position on the thighs is to just hinge your arms up at your elbows and then drop them onto your thighs. And wherever that spot is that your hands hit is the position where your arms will support your back. And it's we'll be leaving our hands facing down, palms down. And then again, the gaze is just dropped in front of you on the floor, maybe 2 to 3 feet out. Should feel very loose, kind of soft gaze, relaxed gaze. This meditation that I'll lead us through will be eyes open. If that's uncomfortable for you, if you don't like it, you're welcome to close your eyes at any point. If you've never tried it, sometimes it's nice to try it. So this is the posture that we'll be maintaining for the duration of the practice. Again, if at any point things feel uncomfortable, please adjust. You can add support under your knees with cushions or pillows or blankets. If you feel uncomfortable while we're practicing, you can also take the resting posture, which is just to bring your knees in front of you and hold them like this. And you can continue the breathing practice even when you're in this position. This helps too if you're feeling any kind of pain or if you're feeling tired as well. And then when you're ready, you can just go back into your seated posture. So before we move into the practice, it's nice once we're in the posture to just do a very light body scan. And you don't have to do a formal, like full head to toe thing. It's really just about bringing your attention into your physical body and noticing if you feel maybe any tension or stress. Maybe taking a couple of deep breaths, releasing some of the tension. I say this a lot, but I always notice that I hold tension in my face, especially if I'm scrunched up looking at my computer or my phone. So noticing if you're holding any stress in your jaw. Just taking a moment to kind of relax the facial muscles. Sometimes I like to just loosen my forehead and cheek muscles. You can also let your jaw hang slightly open and rest your tongue on the roof of the mouth, and that will also open your jaw and release some of the tension in your face. And also just notice if you feel like any stress in the shoulders. Sometimes just raising them and then letting them kind of drop helps loosen up too. And just take a few more breaths in this position. And then you can let the body scan kind of dissolve away, just releasing any thoughts about that. And you just start to notice the body breathing, just noticing the physical sensations as you breathe in and out. You may notice it in your diaphragm, your chest. When we say that we're noticing the breathing, you're just bringing your attention to it. You're just sort of saying, okay, that's there. I'm paying attention to it. Sometimes we might feel a tendency to like manipulate the breathing, kind of start making it deeper, um, slower. That's okay, but you really don't need to do that. We're just basically picking a sensation, a physical sensation that you're feeling and experiencing, and you're just placing your attention there. As you work with this kind of idea of placing the awareness on your breathing, you will eventually become distracted. You might not even notice it right away. And when that happens, you can think of the body breathing as an anchor or even as sort of like a square one and just come back to the square one. So you can, maybe you notice you're in a daydream and kind of just say, oh, that's interesting. Goodbye. And bring your attention back to this feeling of breathing, this physical sensation in your body that you were placing your attention on. I also find for myself that when I feel um, perhaps overwhelmed by thoughts or busyness or speediness, that picking a sensation of breathing that is in the chest or the heart center has a sense of kind of dropping your awareness from your head into the center of your chest. So, this is the basic practice, and we're going to continue to do this on our own for a few minutes in silence. I'll ring the gong to start and end, and you can just work with this at your own pace. So as you begin to come out of the meditation, you can take a couple of deep breaths, maybe wiggle your fingers and toes, and trying to bring some movement back into the body. I like to stretch. So we have a few minutes for questions if you have them. If you would like to come on screen, you're welcome to turn on your camera or your microphone and ask a question. Or if you don't want to be on the screen, you can also type them in the chat box. And if you have one, you can just share it. I'll just say a couple of things while people are thinking of questions if you have them. So that was about a 14-minute sitting in silence after I rang the gong. And when you're starting to practice, I think that 10 minutes a day is a really good amount of time to start with. And then moving into like 14, 15 minutes and eventually at 20 minutes is really wonderful, because I think as you sit for longer, different things happen to you with your mind. Sometimes it takes time to kind of settle down into practice. For me, I know like on a busy day, it might take me maybe 5 minutes or so to even feel like I'm kind of just landing where I'm at. So I always recommend starting with 10 minutes and doing that frequently, so 10 minutes a day, and then moving to maybe 15 or 20 once you feel like you want to do that. I found, I read something interesting. I can't remember exactly where I read this, but I read somewhere online that an Italian woman had said that really one of the most difficult parts about this time that we're going through is changing our own habits. So what we're habitualized to do, which is go out of the house, be social, especially for New Yorkers, like socializing over food and drink is something that's really kind of critical to our lifestyle here. And oftentimes maybe we live in homes that are very small, and we can't do that. So meditation can help with just the entire experience of first noticing what our habits even are, maybe noticing how we're feeling about kind of resistance to letting go of things, and then working with adjusting and developing new habits and new behaviors. So it may not seem exactly obvious, it may not seem like extremely obvious at the beginning when you start to do this practice, but over time, what you will notice is that when you kind of sit down and do something very boring like this, you notice the way that your mind behaves, and often it is habitual and there are patterns there. So when we start to meditate, a lot of the time we're just becoming familiar with the experience that we have when we look at our own minds and our patterns and our kind of behavior and thought patterns. And then from there, we can choose what we want to do with that. Maybe we just notice it for a while. Maybe we decide that, you want to act differently, or I want to cultivate patience, or I really want to let go of this one thing that I keep thinking about. I'm going to work on letting go of that. So before we can even get to the point of making those decisions, we have to start by becoming familiar with what our experience is. And that can happen through this type of meditation practice when it becomes part of your life. So Dasha says, I appreciated the prompt to drop the breath down into the chest heart. It helped me move down from the head thoughts very momentarily, but still. I also then brought it down into the belly. Yeah, I always give this instruction because for me, it really works. So sometimes I even say it because I need to remember to do it. I really find that sometimes the physical experience I have when I'm meditating is that I feel like there's so much stuff kind of going on up here for me. Even if I'm not like cognitively aware of what all of my thoughts are, particularly if I've had a very busy day or been like overstimulated, So it's easy to for me to kind of get caught up in the like my head basically. Um, so when you bring your awareness down into the heart center, that's why I always give the instruction of feeling the body breathing, because often for me, I feel the body breathing here and even lower too. Like as you're saying, into the belly, you do, if you really exaggerate your breath, you can feel it in your diaphragm pushing your belly out and in. And it has a sense of grounding. And even if it's just momentarily, I think that that's great. If you even if you experience it just for a few moments, and if that's something that works for you, you can remind yourself maybe when you notice that you go off into a daydream or something that, okay, let me just kind of like drop back down. There are other sometimes like other physical gestures that I do if I'm feeling really distracted, which is that sometimes I also, the thing with the dropping the arms onto the legs, um, sometimes I do that if I notice that I'm like, sometimes I do this thing of like, this is over exaggerated, but sort of like clenching down, like I can feel myself kind of rounding down and grabbing my knees. I I let go of my knees and I do this. So sometimes if you see me on the camera, I might kind of do something like that. That's me just dropping my hands back onto my thighs. And that also kind of helps to just like break up whatever's going on up here. So if there are little things like that, and different teachers teach different ways, you catch something like that that someone says that's helpful, just hold on to that and try it on your own, especially if you're feeling like it's really conceptual or heady. Um, I really like practices that focus on the heart center. For me, it's easy to connect there. So if we don't have any more questions, then what I will do is we'll do one more sit. So this time I won't set it up at all. I'll just go straight into it. Um, I won't guide it. So you just go kind of right back. I'll ring the gong. I'll go right back to where we were. So gong, dropping back into your posture, attention straight on the breath. Not a lot of thinking about setting everything up. Just kind of let yourself drop into your posture and start the practice. And see if that feels different for you. See if you notice anything different about this experience versus the last time we sat together. And this time we'll sit for a little bit shorter period. Um, Notice what that feels like too. So I will once again, I'll ring the gong to start and end. This time, no guidance. We'll just go straight there. We'll sit together for a few minutes and then we'll conclude and we'll have some time if you have any last questions before we go. And I can also tell you a little bit more about some of the other free offerings that we're doing this week on the weekly Dharma gathering. So you can take a sip of your water or tea. And just set up your posture again where you were, dropping the hands down, feeling upright but not uptight. That's often an instruction that we use. So feeling uplifted but not forced. Head looking straight out. You can drop the gaze, drop the chin, drop the gaze, light gaze, big, open, expansive, soft gaze, having a sense of your peripheral vision, just full kind of all the way around you. And then we'll start practicing together. So again, you can wiggle your fingers and toes, maybe stretch a little. Oh, crack your neck. um, so you can also feel free to send any questions in the chat as I kind of conclude here, but that last sit was around 10 minutes. So shorter, maybe felt different for you, maybe felt totally the same. Try what works for you as you're establishing a practice. The weekly Dharma gathering was meant to be a resource, a digital resource for people who are getting started, who have been meditating a long time. We really wanted to offer talks once a week on Wednesday evenings, specifically to kind of newer voices in the space, in the mindfulness and meditation space. So a lot of the teachers, we have a really exciting roster of teachers giving talks every Wednesday night. There are 4 of us who co-founded this platform, and 2 of us, Dr. Shantae Smalls and I, decided to offer these free classes in addition to the normal Wednesday nights, just because people are kind of at home, maybe trying to learn how to meditate for the first time, and it can be really helpful to have a group and have some community around your practice. So I would encourage you, if you'd like to come back, I'm going to be hosting these every Monday evening through March 30th. So for the next 3 weeks, including today. And Shantae will be hosting on Friday evenings, which is Tonglen practice. It's a slightly different kind of practice. It's a style of practice that involves kind of cultivating compassion and offering that to the world, or offering that out to people who are in difficult situations or difficult circumstances. That can be a very powerful practice as well if you're feeling like you can't get out or you can't be of help to people who need it. Sometimes it's wonderful to be able to work with that practice and be able to kind of energetically offer when we can't physically offer. And so that will be Friday at the same time. That's also free for the next 3 weeks. So Mondays you can learn to meditate with me, and on Fridays you can do Tonglen with Shantae, and I'll be doing Shantae's class as well on Friday myself personally. And then on Wednesdays, we have our normal schedule of teachers. So this week, Angie Cho is leading a talk. Angie is, she studies Kado, which is the art of flower arranging. It's contemplative flower practice. And so she'll be talking about how doing a mindful practice like this can help us in our lives, and that information is on our website as well. So we have 3 very exciting things going on this week, and 3 ways for you to practice online. And then in the meantime, try sitting on your own and see how it goes. Last chance for questions if you have one. So this recording, when we're done, will be available on the website, and you can also send this on. Oh, and thank you, Dasha. Can we share this with people after? Yes. So the way that you signed up, as soon as we finish here, I will hit stop on the recording, and we will upload this to the same kind of product page on Weekly Dharma Gathering as a recorded video. So if you have friends who would like to learn how to meditate, you can send them the link. They can use code FREE. Just when you click buy, use code FREE, it's $0, and then they'll access the recording, and you can also access the recording as well. And the other thing I would mention too is that we also offer a free 14-day trial. This is a great time to try that, especially if you're in a 14-day quarantine in your house. So you can sign up for a free trial of the Weekly Dharma Gathering, and you can access the entire backlog of all of our content, all of our past talks, all of our past recorded meditations, even those that were offered were not free. So if you do the trial, then you can see everything. So, with that, I would love to thank you all for coming and good luck with your practice. I hope to see you again on Monday or maybe on Friday as well if you'd like to try a different style of meditation. Um, and thank you for coming.